Goodreads released its readers' most read books for their reading challenge, and I have happened to read quite a few of them. Let's talk about these. Welcome to Novel Beginnings. The first category is contemporary fiction, and the number one book in this is The Correspondent by Virginia Evans. This book recently won the Women's Prize, and no surprises seeing that this is the number one spot. This was one of my top three reads in the year of 2025, and I'm so glad that it is getting so much attention and so much love. The Correspondent is an epistolary novel, and we have Sybil, and we get to see this character etched out for us through the correspondences that she has with various people in her lives, from her friends to her family to somebody she just interacted at a call center, and even to some of the authors that she has loved reading their books. When I started reading the book, honestly, I did not realize I'll be able to paint such a vivid picture of a person just through her letters. But Virginia Evans does such an excellent task that we all are cheering and rooting for Sybil. She is human, and we find through these correspondences that we see her life story kind of unravel in front of our eyes. We are appreciative of the struggles that she has come through, but we also kind of question some of the decisions that she has taken in the past. But she's human, she's not infallible, she is not beyond reproach. She is human, and I truly appreciated that Virginia Evans was able to create this character because we feel sympathy, we feel empathy, and we kind of see the things she did and why she did them. And I actually had a wonderful time reading this book, and I'm so happy that it is on number one spot. Next is Heart the Lover by Lily King. I watched one of my favorite YouTubers say that Lily King's books, when you're reading them, yes, you enjoy them, but I think the true impact comes after you finish reading the book. And I couldn't agree more with her. Heart the Lover is about three friends. We kind of see their life stories spanning for over 2 decades, and we see them in university and how they are as adults. It is a book that I think talks about friendship, about forgiveness, and I loved this book. I read this book in November, and there are still, I think, of the scenes that have rendered me speechless, and there were scenes that made me so emotional. I really loved reading Heart the Lover, and I'm so glad that this is on number two spot. This was also one of my top three books I read in 2025. I truly enjoyed this book. The next book on the list is The Wedding People by Alison S. Spock. This book is about Phoebe and Delilah. On paper, these two are very unlikely individuals to be friends with, but at the weakest and at the lowest points in their life, they somehow find each other and strike this very unlikely friendship. I know when this book came out, there was quite a bit of controversy because Phoebe shows up at this very fancy hotel where Delilah is getting married, and Phoebe is there with the intentions of unaliving herself. And when Delilah and Phoebe kind of share an elevator ride, Phoebe kind of shares that with Delilah, and Delilah goes, "Absolutely not! You cannot do that. You cannot spoil my wedding." So I don't know. I think I loved the unlikelihood of this story. There are things that are so unexpected, and for me as a reader, I do appreciate that Alison S. Spock actually dealt with a lot of sensitive topics with a deft hand. She dealt with them with a lot of care and attention. She did bring in some levity, but that doesn't mean she was making light of the situations. I really had a good time in reading this book, and I'm glad to see it. It's at number 3. Wild Dog Show by Charlotte McConaughey. This book was also long-listed for the Women's Prize, and it was a very buzzy book last year. This is about a salt family that is living on salt water, and this is set at a time when our planet has been ravaged by environmental change. And on this island, Dom, who is our male main character, is a father to 3 children. And one day, this unknown woman washes up ashore, and the intrigue builds. This book, the beauty of this book lies in the description of the atmosphere and the wildlife. It is so evocative. It is so brilliantly done, and I have to applaud the author for that. She really transports you and takes you there. When she was talking about the huge waves, I could sort of feel those waves crashing in. It was so beautifully done. However, my problem with the book was the ending of the book kind of didn't sit well with me. It kind of marred my entire reading experience. I don't think it was necessary. Whatever transpired in the book in the end was, and there were some elements in the book that I was like scratching my head, like, did we need that? Anyway, before the ending, this book was getting a 4 star, perhaps a little bit more than that. But after I finished the book, I'm like, no, I did not like the way we saw the characters and their ending. So I think I gave it a 3.75 stars. Fear of Golden by Alan Levi. This is, again, such a talked about book. This is initially, I think, a self-published book, but of course it has become such a popular book. This is about Theo who visits this place, Golden, and this book has so much heart in it. And I quite appreciated those very soft and loving moments. However, I do think that this book would have done better with an editor and a much tighter narrative, and I quite enjoyed it. Broken Country by Claire Leslie Hall. I know we have spoken at length and I've ranted at length about this book. This book did not work for me. I know I'm in the minority, but I don't know. It just, the writing wasn't good enough to compensate for the lack of well-developed characters and a storyline. It just didn't work for me. I know people have loved it and people have raved about it. 500,000 people have gushed about this on Goodreads reviews. So clearly, I'm not the right audience perhaps for this book. But yeah, Frederick Bachman's My Friends, it's on my TBR. I have a signed copy by the author, and I cannot wait to read this. I have read only Beartown by this author, and I've really enjoyed it, and I cannot wait to dig in. Yesteryear is another book that I read in the last couple of months, the buzziest book of this year by Caro Claire Berg. This is about Natalie, who is this trad wife influencer with 10 million followers, and she's putting up this very well curated lifestyle on her social media platforms. But behind the scenes, very nefarious things are happening. And one day, our character Natalie, she wakes up and it seems that she has been transported to the 1800s. What has happened, and what is this nightmare that she has walked into? This is a book, a commentary on a lot of things, and that's what I appreciate the most about this book, that it has started a conversation about various topics, about social media, about the trad wife influencer culture, and the extremities of it. I did like this book. However, I feel that this book needed there were a lot of things that the author could have explored in this, and I wanted, especially with the character, I just wanted a little bit of why she is the way she is, and not just, this is an unhinged person, an unhinged character, there you go. I wanted a little bit of more exploration, and I think that was missing. It lacked a little bit of more nuance in certain areas, and if I had that, I think I would have appreciated the book even more. But yeah, The Names by Florence Knapp. This book I had started reading last year, and I had to kind of do a soft DNF because I had just finished reading Nesting by Roisin O'Donnell, which also dealt with domestic violence, and I was not in the mind space reading two back-to-back domestic violence books. The next one is The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. My friend one day asked me that, is there any book that you had given a different rating and now after some time you kind of want to change that? It could be any which way. And I think the first book that popped up in my head was The Midnight Library. When I read this book, I wouldn't say I really liked it, but I liked it. I think I gave it 4 stars. But the more I sat with this book, the more I was thinking about this book, and I was trying to write a review on this book. I'm like, is it worth 4 stars? Because my rating kind of went down. I felt this book was very didactic and sanctimonious in its tone. And it made this whole idea of when you take your life is just to change your perspective, just get up and, giddy up and jump back on the horse. It made it sound very simplistic. I think there had to be a little bit more nuance in approaching a topic that is so sensitive like this, which was lacking in the book. So looking back, I don't think I would give this a 4 star. I would bring it down to a 3.25 stars. I appreciate the effort, but I don't think I like the execution of it. The next category we have is historical fiction novels. I haven't read anything by Taylor Jenkins Reid, but this is on my TBR. Wuthering Heights, yes, when the movie came out, this is a beloved classic, right? And I think when this movie adaptation came around earlier this year, there was definitely a resurgence to read this book. I read, I think, 20% of this book. It's not a DNF. I just kind of paused, but I'll get back to it and finish reading it. The next book is by Kristen Hanna's The Nightingale. Again, her books are so popular. I haven't read this one, but I have read the other two in the list. The next book by Kristen Hanna, The Women, I have read that book. And I think this was one of the most issued books across public libraries in the country. I know this is a beloved book, and it has got, I think, over 1 million reviews. And I know I am in the minority, but this was not my favorite book that I by her. I have read, granted, I have only read 2 books by the author, but The Women, because I read Healing Wounds by Diane Evans right after I finished reading this book. And that is a nonfiction book. And that was, I think, the source material based on which Kristen Hanna wrote The Women. And once I finished reading Healing Wounds, to be honest, I felt that The Women was nothing but an over-dramatized version of that exact book. I'm sure for legal matters, she did write in her book that Healing Wounds was inspiration and all that. But now that I have read both the books, The Women just felt overly dramatized version of events that Diane Evans, who was a nurse in the front in Vietnam, wrote in her book. So it's not that, but Kristen Hanna has been, I want to like her because she's so beloved and clearly she's a prolific author, but I just find that for me as a reader, if I am told so much how to feel, if I'm given such unnecessary details, you kind of rob that experience for me, and that's what I'm experiencing with Kristen Hanna. In The Women as well, I had quite a few issues, primarily the name, because we just get one woman's perspective. And I don't know, I did not hate this book, but I didn't like it as much as everybody else did. So this was like in a 3.5 zone for me. I haven't read Hamnet yet, and again, Taylor Jenkins Reid, I haven't read that book either. Most of these books are on my TBR list, so that's a good thing. The Mad Wife, I have read by Megan Church. We are with Lulu in the 1950s. She's living in this up-and-coming suburban neighborhood where people have manicured lawns, and everybody has very identical homes. How the book starts, I kind of felt it was like, Oh My Darling or Stepford Wife kind of a thing. However, I felt then the second phase of the book, it came out as a thriller, because when a new family moves in the neighborhood, Lulu is very intrigued because she finds that something is amiss with this new family. And then finally, this book becomes a commentary on women's health, and especially women's mental health, and the lack of treatment, and how people have prejudices against women's health and mental health. I really appreciate the messaging in the book. However, I think these are 3 very different. These 3 could have been very different storylines, and like I was a little confused as to where the story is headed. Like I said in the beginning, it felt very dystopian, and then I felt it was like a thriller, and then it became a social commentary. I don't know what this book was trying to do, but I did like Megan Church's writing, and I'm definitely going to try more books by her. The next book on the list is Kristen Hanna's Read Alone. I have also done a review in one of my monthly wrap-ups that I loved the first half of the book. I was completely transported to Alaska. Kristen Hanna is a master at it. She was able to transport her readers to the wilderness of Alaska. I loved it. This book is about Lenny and her mother, Cora, who are uprooted from the city life and are taken to this wilderness of Alaska because their father, once he returns from Vietnam, who's clearly suffering from PTSD, doesn't want anything to do with the government or civilization or anything of that kind. So the first half was beautiful, that how Lenny, who is I think 14 when she goes to Alaska, and then when you meet her, she's in I think 18 or 19, how she tames this very arcane environment and how she makes it her own. I think that's beautiful, the description, how beautifully she paints the charm of Alaska and the treacherousness of Alaska. I just loved it. But the second half of the book completely let me down, especially the ending. I felt it was rushed, and I did not know why it was the choices that the author made, why it was done like that. But anyway, yes, the first half of the book, if I have to just talk about the first half of the book, it was a 5-star book. James also haven't read, and neither have I read Buckeye. The next book in this list is The Bright Years by Sarah Demoff. This is her debut novel, and I'm so happy that she has garnered so much of popularity, and rightfully so. I truly, truly love this book. This is about Lillian and Ryan, how they met and how they started their family. This is more a look into how we all have baggages, and when we find our partners, our spouses, and we get in this relationship, we build our families, I think it becomes incumbent upon us to have faith that this is the person I have chosen to live my life with, and I want to grow with this person, and we're going to help each other grow, and reduce our baggages or share our baggages. This is what, to me, that was my takeaway from this book, and I think it was so well done. It was fantastic, and Sarah Demoff she is a social worker, so I'm not saying she brought in the true stories that she encounters, but she was able to bring that sensitivity in these issues, and I truly, truly loved it. It was a lovely read, and I cannot wait to read. I think the second book that she has written, so it's right there, and I'll be reading that soon. The next category, unfortunately, I haven't read anything, and that is the thriller category. So many books are by Frida McFadden, and I haven't read a single book by her. However, I have three books here that are on my TBR. One of them is The God of the Woods by Liz Moore. More people who have read this book, they kind of call this, it's more like a literary fiction thriller. I haven't read anything by her, but I'm very, very curious. I have read The First Light Doesn't Win by Ashley Elston, and it was an okay book for me. If you ask me what the book was about today, I cannot tell you anything. It was not a memorable one. However, having seen that people are really enjoying Anatomy of an Alibi, I'm kind of interested to pick it up. I haven't read The Silent Patient, but the one, apart from The God of the Woods, the one that really piques my interest is It's Not Her by Mary Kubica. In the romance challenges, I have read two books, and they both are by Abby. No surprises here. The Night We Met. This is the book that I read last. It was an okay read for me. I gave it 4 stars. It's about Larissa and Chris. And Larissa is Chris's best friend's girlfriend. There is no cheating here, but the trope the trope itself was a little bit wobbly for me, but anybody who can deal with this well is Abby, and she did. However, there were certain things missing. Because I have loved so many of her books before, I really was looking for more supporting characters. I was looking for something more in this book, but I gave this book a 4 stars, and I had a good time reading this book. The other book I have read is Say You'll Remember Me, which was the first book in this new trilogy, and I loved this book. I loved how Samantha and Xavier, yes, it's insta-lovey, but again, if somebody can do insta-love right, it's Abby. And then she kind of explores what happens after love happens. What happens when life throws you curveballs, because we have Samantha, who has a parent who has a debilitating disease, and how she makes those choices, how she kind of chooses her role as a daughter taking precedence over being a girlfriend. I just loved how she explored those themes, and I loved that book. It was a solid 5 stars for me. The next category is Romantasies, and surprisingly, I have read quite a few of them. Let's talk about them as the series. So the first series we'll talk about is Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. Fourth Wing, Iron Flame, Onyx Storm. Fourth Wing was one of the books that really got me back into reading. Now, is it the greatest piece of literature? No, it's not. But did I have fun? Oh, yes, I had so much fun. I finished that big chunk of a book in 3 days. 2 days, actually. I know it's not a lot, but I was picking up a book after almost, 10, 15 years. So I'd say it was a decent speed at which I read the book. I really enjoyed the book. Violet Sorrengail and the Dragons and the whole academy, everything was right. It was great. It was a lot of fun. Iron Flame, I don't know. The first half was great. The second half was all right. And Onyx Storm, I don't even know what that was. Am I curious to read the fourth book? I am, but will I be standing in queue getting the fourth book? Maybe not. I'm just going to wait it out. I'm going to see other people's reviews and then maybe read it. But yeah, it was not that good for me. Moving on to ACOTAR series, I wanted to join and jump in the bandwagon because everybody was talking about ACOTAR and I really wanted to read this book. Now, having read the entire series, I know the first book was perhaps not the strongest one, but it definitely picks up in the subsequent books. A Court of Mist and Fury was really good, but my favorite actually was A Court of Wings and Ruins. I think the political intrigue was much more amped up. I liked the characters, I liked the battle scenes. I had a lot of fun in that book. I did like the last book as well, The Court of Silver Flames. And yes, Shield of Sparrows by Devaney Perry and Rise of Starling. Shield of Sparrows was one of my favorite books I read last year, and I absolutely devoured it. Odessa and Ransom, perfect. The magic system, the world building, loved it so much. Rights of the Starling, I had really high expectations going in, but it wasn't a disappointment. I just felt there was a lot of info dumping towards the end, and we could have done without that, but I really had a good time reading that book. Moving on to fantasy, Song of Achilles, Madeline Miller. Oh my God. I know people who are more pedantic about their classics might not like it, but listen, for me, my reference for Greek classic was Troy, the movie. So this was a big step up, and I loved this book. Madeline Miller is a wizard with her book, with her writing, and I loved it. It was absolutely brilliant for me. And I'm so glad to see it as a number one. And I think more so because Odyssey is coming out, the movie, this month. So maybe there has been a resurgence in the popularity, but this has been a popular book forever. The next is House in the Cerulean Sea. You want a hug in the shape of a book? You have The House in Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. A book about embracing your differences, a book about accepting differences, a book about friendship, family, found family. It was such a beautiful book to read. I truly, truly loved it. I haven't picked up the second book in the series, but I will one day soon. The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. I promise I am not the one with so many controversial opinions, but I know this is such a beloved book. But listen, I didn't hate the book, but I just did not love it like everybody else. This is about our main character, Addie, who is in the early 18th century in countryside France, and she makes a deal with the devil whereby she doesn't want to die because she wants to experience and live the world. She wants to travel. But then the downside of this deal that she makes with the devil is that she'll be forgotten. She'll never be remembered. And that's what the story is. I loved the beginning of the book. It was so beautiful. It was a little bit flowery. It was the prose, but it worked because the author was describing the countryside, the lush countryside, French countryside in the 18th century. And I loved that. I loved the relationship, how she explained between Addie and her father. It was beautiful. However, as the book went on, I just felt that the focus became on the conversations that happened between Luke and Addie, and that was kind of becoming repetitive because there was no progression in that, and I was looking for a bit of a growth in Addie's character. Yes, I understand, granted that she's 23 and she can never age, she can never die, but she has lived for 300 years. I just don't want her to be a gullible 24-year-old. I just wanted a little bit more from her, and that I did not get. So I did not hate it, but I didn't just love it like everybody else. R.F. Kuang, I'm yet to explore the world and the universe of R.F. Kuang. I haven't. I do have most of her books, but I'll be picking it up. Piranesi, again, I haven't read. Circe, one of my favorite books by Madeline Miller. I love it more than Song of Achilles. Circe, if I'm not mistaken, is just mentioned in a small line in the poem of the Odyssey, and Madeline Miller, only a master storyteller like her, is able to take that and craft such the story of a famous sorceress and craft the story around this character. It's a feminist retelling, and I loved it. It is one of my forever favorite books. The Will of the Many by James Allington. I am so glad I read this book because I'm so invested in Wiz's story. This is about when we meet Wiz. He is, I think, 18 or 19, and he has left his kingdom because everybody was slaughtered that he knew, and his family. And he is running away and kind of laying low until somebody spots him and says, you know what, you're going to be my spy. I need to investigate a murder that has happened, and the murder is that of my brother. And Viz is then shipped off to this magic school, and he learns a unique kind of magic, and he kind of is trying to infiltrate the hierarchy. This was so much fun. Is it tropey? Yes, it is, but it's tropey done right. I truly enjoyed it, and I'm so invested in the story. The second one, which is going to be Strength of the Few, that's next in the list. It was a great sequel. I do think that there were some things I was a little bit inundated with a lot of information, but it's okay. The second book, and I understand it's set up for book 3 and book 4. I think it's a quartet. I'm fine with it, but it was, I mean, the magic system, the intrigue, the political intrigue, everything just is amped up 100 times in this one, and I really enjoyed it, and I'm so glad that I'm reading this universe that James Allington has created for all of us. Sci-fi, I don't read a lot of sci-fi books, and I do want to read more, but I have read 2 in this category, and that is Andy Weir's Hail Mary. The movie came out, of course. It is such a popular and talked about book, and I'm so glad that I read it, and I did this via audiobook and the book. Such a fantastic book. I love that the science was simple but not simplistic, and at the heart of the book, it's about friendship, about loyalty, and about humanity, and I just adored that. The other book I have read is Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. It is one of the first books I read in sci-fi, and if today I have to propose a starter pack for somebody's reading or getting back to reading, I would definitely include this book, because Blake Crouch, I think he's a screenwriter, so the whole book is presented like a script, so the reading becomes much easier. And at the heart of it, the science is not very complicated. It's about a protagonist who is a brilliant scientist, but his friend feels that he hasn't really achieved or attained as much as he could have. So one day after he catches up drinks with his friend, he's on his way back home, and there's some kind of a portal situation, and when he wakes up, he's like, okay, I have exactly the life my friend has told me, very famous and whatnot, very famous scientist, but then where's my family? And thus the quest begins. This, again, at the heart of it, this is about family, about love, and that you love what you do, which to other people might not seem enough, but to you it does. Very beautiful, and I really, really enjoyed this book. I have read Recursion, but I still prefer The Dark Matter. Horror, for a person who doesn't do horror at all, she has read 2 books here, and that is We Used to Live Here. It was such a fun read. This is about a couple who just moved into a dilapidated home. It's a fixer-upper, and one of the girls who has moved in, she goes out to fetch something, and the other one, who's a people pleaser, stays back, and this family just walks in and says, "Hey, you know what? The father grew up here. Can we have a look around the house?" She should not. You're screaming, don't do that, but she does, because she's a people pleaser. The intense thriller I got while reading this book. Well, I didn't expect I would enjoy this book so much. There were some moments I was uncomfortable. I did feel the hair standing up on my back. And there is so much intrigue in this. I did not bother going on Reddit and figuring it out, because I know I'll be more confused. But I do want to read The Caretaker, because it's set in the same universe. I want to do that. And the other book I read here is The Buffalo Hunter by Stephen Graham Jones. I love this book, and I'm so glad I had also the chance to meet the author. Now, in this book, when they say horror, it is not like an apparition or a ghost you're going to see. It is about horrifying things that we as humans do. We think that a monster is going to be horrifying, but it's actually us humans and our thoughts and our actions that are horrifying. And that's what the author talks about in the book. It is such a fantastic book. And if you have the chance to get the audio and the book and do an immersive read, transformative. I loved it. Now, these are memoirs and nonfiction, general nonfiction, and then we have historical nonfiction. And unfortunately, I haven't read anything in these 3 categories. I have promised that I'm going to read 6 books, 6 nonfiction this year. I have about 5.5 months to do it. I haven't started anything yet, but I will. However, I have quite a few TBRs, and I cannot wait to jump in. So with this, we come to an end, and I hope you had fun watching this video as much as I had fun talking about these books. It's always wonderful to see and get a list and get a goal to achieve, especially for someone like me who hasn't read a lot of books in her life and has just started this journey, and I'm very excited, and I am so hungry to explore more books. And challenges like these introduce me to more books that I should be reading and putting it on my to be read list. So thanks to Goodreads for doing that. So with this, we come to an end. I hope you have enjoyed watching this video as much as I have loved bringing this to you all. Take good care of yourselves, and thank you for watching.